Welcome to the solar dominance hypothesis. Buckminster Fuller once said, "We are called to be the architects of the future, not its victims." We know how to provide energy for everyone on Earth, how to do this in a way that solves the climate crisis. But in order to achieve this, we have to change how we think about making energy decisions. When people are confronted with the question of how am I going to meet my energy needs, they start right off with picking a technology, typically based on how much energy it can produce. If you come at it from that standpoint, you probably ought to look first at solar. It is the most abundant energy source. 133,000 terawatts of solar energy hitting the Earth continuously, more than 10,000 times the amount of energy we need on Earth. But then you could say, but the amount of hydrogen that's in a liter of water is the equivalent of 1 million gallons of gasoline. Or the wind on the American Great Plains could supply all of America's electricity. Or the amount of energy in a gram of uranium-235 is more than 13 barrels of oil. Or the waves that crash each day on the shores of the US, 64% of the electricity we would need. The question is not how much energy is out there, but first off, what do we need that energy to do for us? And then how much will it cost to capture and deliver that energy? That question of how much will it cost is critical. And the answers have changed significantly from conventional wisdom. It turns out wind power is now about the cheapest way to deliver electricity to us. Solar is next, natural gas, then geothermal, then offshore wind, then coal, then nuclear, and then peaking natural gas. The cost is not just what it takes to catch it, but what it takes to deliver it to you. And then you ought to ask yourself, what do I need energy for? It turns out most of the energy that we use needs to be in the form of heat. Warm our buildings, provide industrial heat. The next largest amount we have wanted to have in the form of liquid fuel to run our vehicles, to run the transportation sector. And only a relatively small amount of it needs to be in the form of electricity, although that is shifting as we begin to electrify the economy. The cheapest form of energy is not to need it in the first place. To use the energy that we already have dramatically more efficiently. To plug up the little cracks around our windows that let heat leak out, or to have a much more fuel efficient car, or make our industries more efficient. Saving energy also turns out to be a great driver of economic development. Per megawatt saved in a community, you generate over $2 million in increased economic activity, over $500,000 in wages, and 10 times the number of jobs that you would get from investing in any central station power plant. Again, efficiency is the cheapest, then wind, then utility scale, solar photovoltaic, natural gas, coal, community solar, and the prices there are falling rapidly. Nuclear is very expensive. Solar electricity is becoming even cheaper than most oil. Saudi Arabia, the Middle East, has been a source of very cheap energy for over 100 years. This is now starting to change. The National Bank of Abu Dhabi said that even if oil is $10 a barrel, and right now in the United States, it's somewhere between 40 and 60, about 50 a barrel today, it can't beat solar on cost. And renewable jobs, at a time when we need more jobs, are growing faster than any other sector in the economy. This led two of us to write this paper, The Solar Dominance Hypothesis, which says by 2030, the world will be at least half renewable. Is that possible? Here's what's been happening. The first half of the last decade, installed global solar capacity doubled every 2 years, and for every doubling, that cut the cost of solar by about 20%. So utility scale solar, big scale solar, now costs less than any other source into the grid, and distributed solar, solar on your own rooftop, is rapidly approaching grid parity. Similar drop in price is happening with batteries, which can store that solar electricity. The sun doesn't shine 24 hours a day. So if you're going to use solar as your only source of energy, you need to be able to store it. But these cost dynamics mean that solar has, in the last 13 years or so, increased 100-fold. So a new solar array goes up every 150 seconds in the United States. For our hypothesis to hold true, those assumptions will have to continue to be true, that the cost of solar panels continues to fall 20% for every doubling, global installed solar capacity doubles every couple of years, and we see the same fall in cost in storage. I believe this will happen because of some pretty good science. One from Dr. Mark Jacobson at Stanford, who back in 2009 said there are no technological barriers to the entire world being run on renewable energy. Now, he was counting not just solar, but solar and wind and a few biofuels, a few other technologies. His solutions project walked through for the United States and for every state in the United States just exactly what it would take to become 100% renewably powered by 2030. He's done this for the world, for most countries. Check it out, the Solutions Project. And Mark is not the most aggressive analyst on this. Tony Seba also teaches at Stanford, Silicon Valley entrepreneur, wrote a book back in 2014 called Clean Disruption, describing how inevitably, because of these economics, the world will be 100% renewably powered by 2030. You believe it? If not, read this paper by Tony, Rethinking Energy. You can download it from the web for free. And it describes the enormous disruption in the energy sector. Tony says this will be driven by four things: fall in the cost of solar, fall in the cost of storage, the electric vehicle, and the driverless vehicle. And let's take a look at what's been happening. This is, of course, a very different projection than you would get from the established energy analysts, International Energy Agency, McKinsey, the US government. They say, well, solar will grow a little, but not very much. Year after year after year, they say the same thing. And if you take all of these year-on-year projections, the growth is pretty vertical. Here's the reality. In Colorado, the coal-loving electric utility, Xcel Energy, put out a solicitation for bids. They needed 1,100 megawatts. They said, Everybody bid. Any source, any price, let's see what you got. They were confident that natural gas would win. And gas came in at 4 cents a kilowatt hour. Wind came in at below 2 cents a kilowatt hour. Solar a bit above 2 cents a kilowatt hour. Wind plus solar plus storage, 3 cents a kilowatt hour. Excel said, no, bid it again. Solar tariffs have been slapped on. Everybody bid it again. 58,000 megawatts bid. Same answer. Yeah, solar tariffs, but meanwhile, the prices had continued to fall. Excel said, huh. And they went to the Public Utility Commission and said, can we pledge to go 2/3 renewable and close 2 coal plants? The commission said, sure. Excel has since said that by 2045, they are going to be 100% renewably powered. Now, that's not as aggressive as Tony would say, but it's an indication of what the real world economics are there. In June of 2019, General Electric walked away from a perfectly functioning natural gas plant out in California because they said it can't compete with solar. Shortly thereafter, the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power signed a contract for solar plus storage batteries at 2.9 cents a kilowatt hour. A little later, GE and BlackRock, the big financier, announced a partnership to do rooftop solar. Portugal then won what I call the Walmart Award for everyday low price, utility scale solar at 1.6 cents a kilowatt hour. In 2020, Abu Dhabi announced 1.3 cents a kilowatt hour, 1.31. So shortly thereafter, Portugal came back and said 1.3. There's a race going on to drop costs in renewable energy. And then China announced it's already cheaper to put solar on your roof than to hook to the coal-fired grid at your doorstep. Not surprisingly, investors are getting into the game. $55.5 billion invested in renewable energy in 2019, despite Trump's attempts to promote fossil energy. Investment up 28% from a year earlier. Companies pledging to go 100% renewable. Unilever, Apple, Google, Microsoft, and a whole lot more. There is a group called RE100, Renewable Energy 100. More than 100 companies are members of this. China's the big dog in this. Bringing on solar, wind, incredibly rapidly. Their annual increase in solar is more than the total installed capacity of Germany. And in the first 3 months of 2018, China brought on the equivalent of 10 nuclear power plants worth of solar. How long does it take to build a nuke? 10 years, maybe? 3 months, they bring on 10 nukes worth. India. India is closing coal plants because they can't compete with solar. 1.6 gigawatts bid, 900 megawatts with pumped storage. This is where you use the electricity to pump water up to a reservoir, and then when it's at night or you need more power, you release the water. And then when you have excess solar, you pump the water back up. 300 megawatts with battery storage, 4 cents a kilowatt hour, cheaper than anything else that India could bring on. And you are going to start to see this all around the world. Africa, utility scale solar. In Africa, much of it is funded by the multilaterals, but increasingly the local utilities are recognizing that this is the cheapest form of electricity for a country that desperately needs it. South Africa, a gigawatt of installed solar capacity, reach 8 gigawatts by 2030. Because again, Africa desperately needs electricity. 587 million people in sub-Saharan Africa without electricity. And they typically spend a great deal of money to buy flashlights and batteries or kerosene, 20 to 40% of their income. So this little group, Elephant Energy, is bringing solar to Namibia, for example, creating shops where people can go and buy small-scale solar, like the little Firefly light, which has a tiny little solar panel to charge it, also provides mobile phone charging. Solar battery, solar flashlights. This dramatically improves the lives of women. Efficient cook stoves. The little flashlights that recharge themselves. Germany, there are already cities that are 100% renewably powered. Wilspolsried produces a lot more energy than it needs, so it sells it, making almost $6 million a year. Last summer, England generated more energy from renewables than from coal. England is where the coal revolution began in the world. England's going renewable. Scotland has pledged that by the time the Conference of Parties meets in Glasgow in November of 2021, they will be 100% renewably powered. And net zero for all greenhouse gases, not just CO2. This can make an enormous difference in poor rural areas, even of the United States. Beaver County, Utah was struggling economically. The economic developer there said, what do we have that we can sell? We don't have any coal, we don't have any oil. He said, the wind blows a lot. Let's sell wind power. And so in 2009, First Wind put up the first of their towers. The taxes from this enabled the schools, the Belknap School that was condemned, to be rebuilt. And it's creating jobs. The tax base went from 60 million to 3 billion because these are good paying jobs in a poor rural area. The renewable future is here. Wind power in good wind regimes, particularly if it has a little battery backup, is fixed firm power, just like a coal plant that can run 24/7. Put together wind and solar, as Jamaica Power is doing, and again, you have fixed firm power. Those are little wind turbines with solar panels. Or you can take other forms of sources for renewable energy. The Rothes whiskey distilleries use the spent distiller's grain to generate electricity. Or make it into butanol. Now you have a liquid fuel that you could use just like gasoline. Again, this is why investors' money is going into renewable energy. This advanced energy revolution is a pretty good place to put your money. Batteries. If wind, solar, the other renewables produce the electricity, how do you store it? Lithium-ion batteries. Again, price is falling rapidly, and China is bringing on 20 mega factories for batteries in 2021. Already in the United States, there are 5 million businesses that would save money by installing a battery to deal with the couple hours a day where they have peak pricing. Peak pricing. Arizona Public Service. Peak electricity will cost you 50 cents a kilowatt hour, off peak 5 cents. It's a no-brainer to put in a battery so that for the couple hours of peak pricing, you're not paying that amount. Or you can contract with storage as a service. Another company puts in the batteries, you just sign a contract so that they provide your power for those couple hours a day at peak rates. How the world has changed. Tesla, now valued at more than Exxon, worth more than General Motors, worth more than all the US, all the auto majors put together. Despite producing 300 times fewer cars, what business is Tesla in? Batteries. It's really a battery company and a solar company. Oh, and it makes some pretty good cars. When Hurricane Maria hit Puerto Rico, within hours, the wind was still blowing. Elon Musk sent hundreds of Powerwalls, battery banks, to Puerto Rico and solar panels, and donated a lot of money. This was not lost on the people of Puerto Rico. When the Aliso Canyon natural gas well blew out in 2017 in California, the utilities were afraid they were going to have blackouts, brownouts. They didn't have enough natural gas to run their natural gas peaking plants. Elon said, it's all right, I'll put in a battery. And did in 88 days, world record time of deployment. And it got the utilities through their downtime. He then turned around in South Australia, where again, the power plants had blown out, and put in a much larger battery to couple with wind and solar. There are many days now where South Australia is 100% renewably powered. Utilities benefit when you co-locate the renewable generation and the batteries. 8% cheaper than building them separately. Now, all of this together threatens the incumbent industries, the industries that have assumed it's just going to be fossil fuel. If it's not coal, it'll be natural gas. Not necessarily. And Bloomberg warned that batteries could trip a $3.4 trillion credit crisis linked to the utility industry and the auto industry. The auto industry, electric cars. China has said it's phasing out electric cars, internal combustion engines. It's not alone. Norway, France, the UK, and now California. And California is the big buyer of automobiles in the United States. What California does will drive what the rest of the country does. By 2035, California has said no more internal combustion engines. The autonomous vehicle. These are cars that drive themselves. They have the computing power to know where they are, to be able to see what's coming at them. Now, these, as they come aboard, spell the end of many of the incumbent industries, because it would be 6 to 10-fold cheaper for you to whistle one of these things up than to pay to buy, fuel, maintain, and insure a private vehicle. At a 6-fold drop in price, you think you're going to try it? I know I will. There are many young people, you ask them, you can have a choice. You can have the keys to the car, or you can have your mobile phone. They'll take the phone every day. Many young people don't have a car. And if we put some of the money that we have been putting into the auto industry into good mass transit and then last mile solutions with autonomous electric vehicles, we now get what we want, which is to get from here to there, dramatically cheaper and with no oil. No oil. Now, you think this is going to be disruptive? Oh, yeah. There are 8 million truck drivers in the United States. There are now electric long-haul trucks on the road. What are we going to do with these people? This is an important question. Auto mechanics, car dealerships. If you don't buy a car, what are we going to do with these industries? This is all part of the transition that we need to manage, or it could get very disruptive. But there are already 48 corporations working on autonomous vehicles. Apple reckons to put a self-driving shuttle in for their staff. And the Financial Times came out with a report, reported on a report from the Fitch Group saying that if Elon hits his target of a 200-mile, $35,000 car, the oil industry could be toast and the utility industry could be toast. Elon has done it. That car is on the road today. Which is to say, we could be looking at the mother of all economic dislocations. This is called the death spiral, where in this case, it's the electric utility industry. People start putting up solar, so the utilities make less money, so they have to increase their bills to the people that are left, so more people put up solar. These are my solar panels. It's a 5-kilowatt system, sits out on my ranch. It runs my Leaf, my electric car, from Simplify batteries that are in my garage. Secretary of Energy Steve Chu said the utilities are at danger of being FedExed like the post office got FedExed as rooftop solar modules drop in price. He's right. The utilities need a new business model. They've done very well by being what's called dynamically conservative. They work real hard to stay in the same place. They are going to have to embrace this transition and figure out their role in it. Right now, at most 40% of the transmission and distribution capacities in use at any point in time, only about 40% of the capacity of power plants. And the efficiency of coal plants has not been improving. These new technologies are just better. This hit these boys in Germany, the CEOs of E.ON and RWE, in the early half of the teens, the decade we've just left. The top European utilities lost $600 billion in value. RWE profits fell 60%, E.ON's profits 91%, as Germany and other European countries started to go renewable. Now, RWE gets it. They have said, we just sold off our coal and thermal generating. We are going to be a distributed renewables utility. Remains to be seen if E.ON will even survive. Carbon Tracker came out with a report in 2018 called 2020 Vision, said 2020s will be the decade of peak fossil fuel demand. And indeed, Mark Campanelli, who runs Carbon Tracker, has told me we've already peaked. Fossil demand will go down from here. They calculated the stranded assets. My colleague John Fullerton, on seeing the first Carbon Tracker report, the carbon bubble, said, who owns those assets? They're going to be stranded. He calculated it would be 20 to 30 trillion. Carbon Tracker, with this 2020 vision, said 25 trillion. When the Kentucky Coal Museum puts solar on its roof because it's cheaper than hooking to the coal-fired grid at its doorstep, come on, it's over. The era of fossil is over. Bucky Fuller talked about energy slaves, the fossil sunlight trapped in the form of coal, gas, petroleum, that for the past 3 centuries we've used. It's now time to free the slaves. It is everywhere cheaper to use renewable energy than to use fossil energy. The military has figured this out. Forward operating bases in Afghanistan are going solar. The guys like it. It's quiet. And it doesn't have a heat signature. If somebody's looking to shoot a heat-seeking missile at you, you don't want heat sources around like a diesel generator. So Simplify Power, which is lithium ion ferrous phosphate, doesn't get hot. What makes lithium ion cells get hot, you hold your phone up to your ear, it gets hot. That's cobalt. Lithium ion cobalt batteries. Simplify batteries are lithium ion ferrous phosphate, no cobalt. They don't get hot. So they can be deployed in hot places, in cold places. They can be deployed in emergencies. This was Maria hitting Puerto Rico just after it hit Dominica. This was the report from Dominica. Power lines down, phone lines down, everything is down. Simplify teamed up with Sesame Solar to pack this shipping container with batteries and with solar. That edge deploys its solar panels with batteries inside. Simplify is in service at Stone Edge Farms microgrid. This is a farm in Sonoma County that uses solar, batteries, even has a little hydrogen manufacturer. When you do this in communities, it's better for your economy. Fort Collins has implemented what it calls its climate economy and has shown that its municipal product, its economy is up, its carbon emissions are down. Boulder, Colorado, emissions down, jobs up, economy up. This is why Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is calling for the Green New Deal, why Bernie Sanders is calling for the Green New Deal. Let's invest in the technologies that give us the jobs, that give us renewable energy, that give us clean air, that are the technologies of the future. Change is coming. It's coming fast. Here's our choice: lead, follow, or get out of the way. Renewable energy and regenerative agriculture together are the solution to the climate crisis, the solution to how we power our lives affordably, abundantly, and how we build a finer future.